found its way in its entirety in the press. I acknowledge the interest of the Honourable Leader of the Opposition in disseminating the PNQ he wishes to put today to the public through the press. However, inasmuch as, by definition, giving private notice is defined as giving notice in writing, sent by any means that is private to the recipient. The more so, having regard to the provisions of standing orders in relation to the process of accepting a parliamentary question and the sub-editing thereof, it is deemed improper for copy of such letter giving notice to the private notice question to have found its way in the press even before the sub-editing thereof by the clerk. Thank you. I have another announcement. In relation to written press and radio reports concerning the resumption of his seat by Honourable Dr. Boulel, presently suspended by the House on the 25th November 2022 for that day's sitting and the ensuing 4 sittings. The House will recall that the suspension of the Honourable Member followed a motion made and voted by the Assembly in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 49.1. Such order for suspension can only be revoked following an appropriate motion to and voted by the Assembly to that effect. As intimated to the House in the past, I reiterate that as a Speaker, I have no authority in the matter. Furthermore, I wish to add that I have so far not received any formal letter from the member concerned, tendering his unreserved and unconditional apologies to the House with a request to resume his seat. Thank you for your attention.
Papers have been laid. Questions?
Leader of the Opposition.
My question is addressed to the Honourable Prime Minister. Whether, in regard to one Mr. JHC, alias F, he will, A, for the benefit of the House, obtain from ICAC and the Commissioner of Police information as to the outcome of inquiries carried out by ICAC and the Anti-Drug Smuggling Unit, ADSU, in 2016, if any, and whether any prosecution was initiated. 2, Commissioner of Police, whether he will obtain from the Commissioner of Police information as to if an objection to departure was lodged against him since that date, and if so, until when. And finally, Passport and Immigration Office details of the overseas travels undertaken by the latter since 2016. And B, state if he was informed by the Commissioner of Police in his daily briefings therewith of the holding in September 2019 of a rogatory commission in relation thereto for drug offences.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I welcome the opportunity of this question to set the record straight in the wake of the various tenuous and wild statements made in the media and by certain politicians, especially from persons with no serious standing, in their futile and desperate attempt to destabilize my government. Mr. Speaker, sir, in regard to Part A1 of the question, I'm advised that under Section 81 of the Prevention of Corruption Act, no information regarding ongoing investigation by the ICAC can be disclosed, and the exception provided for under the law would not apply to parliamentary questions. Mr. Speaker, sir, in regard to Part A2 of the question, I am informed by the Commissioner of Police that Mr. J.H.C., age 33 and residing at Les Salines Pilot, Black River, is known to ADSU, in particular ADSU Western Division, for his association with drugs. In accordance with information received from the ADSU database, Mr. C is on record as from 2016 onwards. On 15th of September 2016, at 7:10 hours, the Western Division of ADSU searched a bungalow occupied by Mr. C in the presence of one Mr. J. L., painter, and residing thereat. Mr. C was arrested for possession of a printed paper parcel wrapping containing a certain quantity of substance suspected to be cannabis mixed with tobacco, 18,150 rupees in the bungalow, 296,275 rupees in BMW X6 registration number F1117, 11,875 rupees in car Volkswagen registered number 559. These items were suspected to be proceeds of money laundering transactions. A provisional charge was lodged against him for money laundering and possession of cannabis on 15th September 2016. An objection to departure was subsequently imposed on him. He was bailed out on 20th September 2016. However, the provisional charge was struck out on 25th of January 2018. Consequently, the objection to departure lapsed. I am further informed by the Commissioner of Police that the inquiry has been completed and the case was referred on 7th of October 2022 to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions for advice. On 8th of January 2023, the DPP advised prosecution against the accused parties for possession of dangerous drugs before the Black River District Court and also for the matter to be referred to the Integrity Reporting Services Agency as well as the Anti-Money Laundering, Combating the Financing of Terrorism Task Force for in-depth investigation and additional consideration. On 16th of February 2023, the matter was accordingly referred to these institutions. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to Part A2 of the question, I am informed by the Commissioner of Police that in 2019, a case of possession of cannabis was lodged against Mr. C by the Anti-Drug and Smuggling Unit. On 16th April 2019, a second prohibition to departure against Mr. C was lodged at Pamplemousse's District Court. On 17th of February 2020, Mr. C applied for a variation order to enable him to travel to Seychelles. And on 18th of February 2020, his request was acceded to by the District Magistrate of Pamplemousses. However, the following conditions were imposed. He was allowed to travel on a restricted passport. He had to furnish a security of 5,000 rupees, and he would have to appear before the District Court of Pamplemousses on 26 February 2020 at 9:30 hours. Mr. Speaker, sir, in regard to Part A3 of the question, I am informed by the Passport and Immigration Office that Mr. C left Mauritius for Seychelles on 20th of February 2020. He came back to Mauritius on 23rd February 2020. The prohibition order was waived on 4th of August 2020 by the District Court of Pamplemousses after he had paid the fine imposed by the court. As regards his other travel details, I am informed that Mr. C traveled overseas on 4 other occasions since 2016 on the strength of his Mauritian passport. His travel movements are as follows. First, on 5th of May 2018, he traveled to Dubai and returned back on 12th of May 2018. 2. On 17th of November 2018, he traveled again to Dubai and returned back on 29th November 2018. 3. On 10th of June 2019, he traveled to Dubai anew and returned back on 23rd of June 2019. And fourthly, he last traveled to Madagascar on 14th of December 2022 and returned to Mauritius on 14th of January 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, in regard to Part B of the question, I am informed by the Attorney General's Office that a letter was received at its end from the Secretary for Foreign Affairs on 26 October 2018, addressed to the Solicitor General and enclosing a request dated 20th of September 2018 from the French authorities to obtain the testimonies of Mr. C and one Mr. J.D.D. in relation to drug trafficking offenses. Thereafter, the Attorney General's Office lodged by the end of May 2019 an application before the judge in chambers to take down the testimonies of the said 2 persons. The application was granted and an order was issued by the Supreme Court on 12th of June 2019, ordering the Master and Registrar to take down the testimonies of the said 2 persons. On 2nd of August 2019, the Master and Registrar issued an order requiring the attendance of the said 2 persons on 18th of September 2019 at 1000 hours for their testimonies to be recorded. The matter was heard by the Deputy Master and Registrar on 18th of September 2019, when the testimonies of the said 2 persons were recorded in Creole. On 6th of January 2020, the Master and Registrar forwarded to the Attorney General's Office the following documents. 1. The order made by the judge in chambers dated 12th of June 2019, and 2. The depositions taken by the Deputy Master and Registrar on 18th of September 2019, together with a typed version of the testimonies in Creole language. On 14th of January 2020, the Attorney General's Office made a request to the Master and Registrar for the testimonies of the said 2 persons to be translated into French and for a certified copy of the translated versions to be sent to the Attorney General's office. On 29th July 2020, a letter was received from the Secretary for Foreign Affairs addressed to the Solicitor General, enclosing a note verbal informing of the administrative closure of the request for regulatory commission regarding the cases of Mr. C and Mr. D. On 6th of February 2023, a reminder was sent by the Attorney General's office to the Master and Registrar requesting an update on the request dated 14th of January 2020. A reply was received on the 8th of February 2023, enclosing the translated testimonies in French. As already stated, it is to be noted that since on 29th July 2020, a note verbal was received from the French authorities informing of the administrative closure of the request for regulatory commission on these two cases. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is important in a country where the rule of law prevails for institutions to do their work without fear or favor. Despite regular attempts from the opposition and other gossip mongers to throw mud at certain institutions, the fact remains that those institutions, namely the police, ICAC, FIU, amongst others, are meant to deliver according to their respective mandates. As Prime Minister, I have never intervened and shall never do so in the daily operations of these institutions. I mean business when it comes to clean up our country from the evils of drug trafficking and other criminal activities. Mr. Speaker, sir, with the setting up of the Commission of Inquiry on Drug Trafficking in 2015, the government resolutely launched a crusade against the drug mafia, and since then, we have been taking numerous decisive and strong measures to root out the drug scourge from our society. We have expended tremendous efforts in this battle since our last mandate, and we have achieved unprecedented results as evidenced by the record seizures and arrests which have been acknowledged and commended upon by the Commission of Inquiry on Drug Trafficking. Mr. Speaker, sir, the fight against drug trafficking is indeed an arduous and everlasting battle, and there is no room for respite or complacency, as it is the future of our youth and the stability of our society which are at stake. This is also the reason why I have always put this fight above partisan politics and favored a concerted and collaborative approach. And I had been expecting the opposition to follow suit and place the national interests above political considerations. Mr. Speaker, sir, we will continue to wage this war with renewed vigor and determination. We have a strategy and we have a plan. We will do whatever it takes within the confines of the law to demolish and disable the drug trafficking network and ensure that there is no safe haven in this country for the drug lords and that they are brought to justice and put behind bars and neutralized. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I said earlier on, this is an arduous and continuous battle, but let my message be clear: there will be no retreat, no surrender, come what may. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very surprised at the avowed satisfaction of the Prime Minister with regard to the operations of the police, the ICAC, the Attorney General, etc., in the light of his own statement in this House in reply to my PNQ. Firstly, I'd like to ask the Honourable Prime Minister regarding the Regulatory Commission. The request was made, according to him, in September 2018. It was took 8 months for the Attorney General to act upon it and make an application to the judge in chambers. And 3 years later, that is when the actual translated transcript was received by the Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister, no doubt, has taken note of the extremely damning comments of the magistrate of the French court, who said that he got no cooperation from Mauritius in this respect. No cooperation, and very, very bad for our reputation overseas. So, I'd like to ask the Prime Minister, what took so much time? Was there some invisible hand that was preventing the government from acting quickly in this respect?
There was no invisible hand. I have just given in full transparency the different dates when the request was received by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the Secretary for Foreign Affairs immediately did the needful. The Attorney General's office was requested to act upon the note verbal, and this is what, in fact, they did. Now, there are certain procedures that need to be respected, and you know, we have to also go before the court, because it was the testimony of those two persons had to be recorded by the master and registrar, and I have given all the dates and all the procedure that was adopted in order to be able to record those statements. But I must say it is unfortunate when the statements had been recorded, there was a note verbal where the French authorities had informed us that there was a closure of the Rogatory Commission.
That was 2 years after the request was made that the French told us to forget about it. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the Honourable Prime Minister concerning the ICAC inquiry. It started 7 years ago on a supposedly major drug dealer. Maybe not the big boss, but the major drug dealer. 7 years it took. And are you saying that this same inquiry, which began in 2016, is still ongoing today, and that is why you cannot give us any information?
Well, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition knows very well that I cannot furnish details, nor can I obtain from investigating authority bodies details of ongoing inquiries. So I will not be able to provide any detail with regard to what has been done from that time till today. But I see in the press, of course, I see in the press, and there have been a number of arrests, a number of people have been requested to furnish explanation. I am only hoping that those people who have been investigated upon, eventually, if there is a case against them, the matter will be decided and they will be taken before a court of law.
Let me come to this Rogatory Commission again in September 2019. Let's say it is then that the Commissioner of Police wakes up and understands that he is dealing with a major drug dealer importing so many times from Réunion, trying to import so many times. Let's say then that the boss of ICAC wakes up. Shouldn't we have seen all these arrests, all these seizures, and a renewed, vigorous ADSU inquiry from 2019 itself, rather than when it came out in the press a few months ago? This is my question. What happened when the Rogatory Commission was held in Mauritius? Mr. Franklin, or Mr. whatever his name is, Mr. F, CF, deponed, and the other guy also deponed. What did the police do? You're in charge of the police. What did the police do when all this information came out from Réunion authorities?
Well, information was obtained from Réunion authorities with regard to an offense that was committed in Réunion Island. And those, as we have seen, those two persons have been convicted. Now, here the what I've been informed by both police and ICAC, the inquiry has been ongoing. In fact, you know, you need to arrest a person when you have evidence to arrest somebody. And I have mentioned 2 cases with regard to Mr. C, where he was arrested. In one case, he was already sentenced, and the other case is before the court. So I cannot give any more information with regard to what evidence is now being collected by the investigative bodies. All I can say is I hope eventually, whenever there is sufficient evidence to take those people to court, they will be asked to answer before a court of law.
I ask the Honourable Prime Minister, here we are in March 2023, and the ICAC has arrested these people. What are the ADSU doing? All this time that these guys are in prison, on remand, isn't it the time that all the acolytes or the collaborators of this Mr. C, they will get all the evidence to disappear? People who might have to leave Mauritius will leave Mauritius. Isn't that therefore, the public, Mr. Prime Minister, are extremely astonished that at this time there's only in inverted commas, inquiry on money laundering, but there seems to be no vigorous inquiry as to the drugs. Where are the drugs being seized through the Franklin connection?
The leader of the opposition is talking as if he knows exactly where the drugs are, how much drugs are in circulation. Nous sommes dans un état de droit, Monsieur le Président. Bien sûr, il faut faire des enquêtes, mais les enquêtes, c'est surtout, il faut collecter les informations, les preuves nécessaires pour pouvoir poursuivre quelqu'un. So, the police, ICAC, they are investigating until the time when they feel that they have sufficient evidence. Of course, they will remit the cases to DPP for advice. And eventually, if there is a case, for prosecution. If the leader of the opposition is saying so much drugs, do you have evidence? If you have evidence, you can impart those evidence to me and I will pass on to the bodies.
All this money must come from some criminal activity. It doesn't come from gambling. It comes from criminal activity, and I would expect ICAC to do their work and ADSU to do their work at the same time, not leave it so long. Obviously, I'm sure everybody understands that it's not in the best interest of an inquiry to have it 3 months or 4 months after the thing has actually splashed out. I'm going to ask the Honourable Prime Minister whether at any time an international arrest warrant was issued for Mr. F, Mr. C, Mr. F, and whether the government of Mauritius, the police, acted upon that.
Yes. Well, let me come back to what the leader of the opposition is saying. That, you know, we need to arrest and so on. We just had a case where somebody was arrested, court red-handed, with 46 kilos of drugs, worth more than 230 million rupees. And what they've been saying, there has been planting. And then they decide to defend this kind of drug traffickers. And now he's saying, why is this one not being arrested? So the people, you're right, people will see and will judge who is in fact doing the needful and who is really determined to track those drug traffickers. But again, I say, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have to go according to law. There is the law of the country that prevails. And until and unless you have evidence, you cannot really just arrest somebody. You're talking about money laundering. Yes, there are cases, there are investigations that are ongoing. And predicate offenses also, trying to find out from where this money comes from. Now, with regard to the second question that you put, there has been, I am informed by the police, that there was an Interpol diffusion notice. But the Interpol diffusion notice, unfortunately, what we have been advised, you cannot just arrest a person unless there is an extradition request from a country. Otherwise, the person will go to court, and then the authorities will be blamed for arresting a person without justification.
So there has been no demand for extradition from Réunion Island. Are you surprised by that, by the non-cooperation of the Mauritian authorities since 2018? Are you surprised that the reputation has now become so bad that Réunion Island has not bothered to issue an extradition request?
Why am I surprised? Why do I have to be surprised? This is the law, Mr. Speaker, sir. It is irrelevant whether who is surprised, who is not surprised. And would you, Honorable Leader of the Opposition, be surprised that it is only now that the French authorities had made a request to extradite those two persons? Why is it now that they are asking to extradite? If we were so surprised, they wouldn't have asked now itself.
You're getting excited. Don't get
getting excited. I'm trying to impart to you. I'm trying to impart to you because I see.
Yes.
I see you are surprised because you said what you said. Should I be surprised because there has the way it seems the way that this matter has been handled, the Réunion authorities have not requested for an extradition request. Okay, fair enough. If that was the case, it would still apply till today. Why is it now that on the, I have the date, on the 23rd of February, that there is 21st and 22nd of February, that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs had received a request from the Embassy of France through two notes verbal for the extradition to the French authorities of Mr. J.C. and Mr. J.D.
The Prime Minister knows the magistrate said she got no cooperation from the Mauritian authorities. I am not surprised now that everything is happening because thanks to the press who have done a wonderful job in this respect, I am not surprised at all. Now my question is this to the Honourable Prime Minister. Now that there appears to be a request for extradition under, I presume, the Extradition Act, the new treaty has not been made public. Is the Prime Minister going to give the assurance to the House that his Attorney General will not resist in any way the application, because there are certain provisions in the law, Mauritian citizens, etc., where the Attorney General may actually decide not to go to and ask for extradition. Will this Attorney General, I ask the Honourable Prime Minister, will this particular Attorney General accede to the request for extradition via the court procedures, of course?
This Attorney General is doing more than what you are thinking. And I can tell you, I can tell the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, when the request was received, this request was, of course, received by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. On the same day, the requests were conveyed to the Office of the Solicitor General. On 28th of February, the Attorney General's Office informed that there are certain things that had to be clarified. And I can tell you that all the needful is being done so that the case can be entered before the court for the extradition of those two people.
Time over. Honourable members, the table had been advised that PQ B4, B13, B14, B18, B12, B16, B20 have been withdrawn. Honourable Nagalingam.
B1.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I shall reply to this parliamentary question together with parliamentary questions B11 and B19 as they relate to the same subject matter. In regard to PQ B1, The Honourable Second Member for Stanley and Rosehill, being himself a politician of long standing and a member of a political party, the leader of which held office as Prime Minister, should have been aware that any Prime Minister and head of government in a similar jurisdiction is necessarily, by nature of his function, the most informed person in his country. But also, necessarily, he imperatively needs to ensure and be fully satisfied that information obtained by him or intimated to him, particularly from private sources, is accurate and reliable and can safely and successfully be acted upon. Having said that, let me confirm what I recently mentioned in a function about my awareness of the influence of the drug mafia on certain people in certain institutions. If I may, Mr. Speaker, sir, let me quote what I did in fact say, and I quote. Je connais le combat qui vous permet mener au gouvernement, pas moi tout seul, mais je voulais dire, moi, mon gouvernement, nous permet mener contre les trafiquants de la drogue, contre les mafias de la drogue. Et moi bien dire inquiet quand on trouve qui manière cette mafia-là, zotenant l'influence de certaines du monde, dans certaines autorités, dans certaines institutions. End of quote. I have thus only expressed my concern about the influence which the drug mafia is capable of exercising on certain persons in certain institutions. Mr. Speaker, sir, the House will appreciate, as I'm sure any former Prime Minister will objectively appreciate, that while certain specific information which I received in my capacity as Prime Minister can overtly be disclosed to the public, there is very highly sensitive information which it would neither be in the order nor appropriate to disclose, while covert measures have been taken to establish facts and the truth. It follows that whenever I receive credible and reliably significant information, I do share it with and entrust it to the relevant authorities for appropriate action. Mr. Speaker, sir, I must say that the mafia influence on our institutions is not a new phenomenon and is not limited to Mauritius only. In many countries, powerful drug cartels are known to have influenced or infiltrated the state machinery, thus undermining their ability to effectively defend the national interest. In Mauritius, as far back as 1987, the Royal Commission on Drug Trafficking was very critical of the then Flying Squad, which was blamed in a report as being a corrupt unit with some senior officers who were at the beck and call of notorious drug traffickers. The 2015 Paris report on horse racing had made damning observations regarding illegal and corrupt activities in the horse racing industry, which were associated with an organized mafia that was being tolerated by certain institutions. And more recently, the Lam Shangling report on drug trafficking also made similar observations about the local drug mafia, who, according to the report, and I quote, are always miles ahead of the authorities in view of their innovative approach and financial support and capability to infiltrate various institutions, and who seem to know in advance what is in store for them before the enforcement agencies closed in on them, unquote. The Commission also mentioned that, and I quote, "It is inconceivable that there have been several allegations and reported cases of corruption within the ranks of the ADSU and of certain officers working hand in hand with the drug lords," unquote. In the same vein, the Commission added, and I quote, "The prison administration and the police were fully conscious that many prison officers had been caught in the web of the drug barons to do their dirty job in return of advantages," unquote. Mr. Speaker, sir, the drug traffickers' networking is not limited to institutions only, but also extends well beyond, as highlighted in the Lamshangling report. And I quote, "In the meantime, the drug traffickers have developed a very solid, highly sophisticated network comprising of prison, police officers, customs officers, pharmacists, complacent doctors, bookmakers, casino owners, jockeys, money changers, financiers, and lawyers. In remaining silent and not denouncing the real culprits in their neighborhood, they become accomplices when they should have been the foremost line of the battalion to ward off the drug traffickers," unquote. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is therefore clear that the evil influence of drug barons on our institutions was known well before 2014, and the then Prime Minister, being the best informed person, should have been aware of it. Yet, absolutely nothing was done to fight the drug scourge, which was met with a disconcerting complacency, with the result that the situation went from bad to worse. This abject and shameful failure on the part of the then government to fulfill its duty to protect our citizens was also highlighted in the Lamshangling report. Mr. Speaker, sir, to refresh the mind of some members of the other side of the House, let me again quote what Lamshangling report had to say. And I quote, "The Commission is fully conscious of the pragmatic, multidisciplinary, and multidimensional approach of the 2004-2009 Master Plan report, which had unfortunately never been implemented for reasons best known to those policymakers concerned. The Commission noted that some of the recommendations had sadly remained very relevant and pertinent today, despite the passage of time and despite certain efforts made at a certain time to implement certain of those recommendations. Unfortunately, no concrete and serious action had been taken to tackle the innovative methods used by drug traffickers in this technological age to buttress their illegal activity," unquote. Mr. Speaker, sir, in December 2014, we inherited the rot, and soon after, we embarked on a crusade against the drug traffickers. And as the first bold step, we set up the Commission of Inquiry on Drug Trafficking, which had that far been systematically refused by the Labour Party-led government. Since then, the government had been battling relentlessly to root out the drug scourge from our society. In this battle, there have been some corrupt officials who have been interdicted from the service on grounds of suspected involvement in drug cases. The organizations have been restructured for more efficiency and effectiveness. The police has has been at the forefront of this crusade, and often at the risk of the lives of police officers. And one will understand the disappointment and frustration of the Commissioner of Police when the expected collaboration and cooperation of certain institutions are not forthcoming. Mr. Speaker, sir, as a follow-up to the Commission of Inquiry on Drug Trafficking report published in July 2018, a ministerial committee was set up under my chair, and another committee was set up under the chair of the Secretary to Cabinet and head of the Civil Service to look into the legal, institutional, and administrative issues, and to expedite the implementation of the recommendations contained in the report of the Commission of Inquiry. The National Drug Secretariat of my office, which has inter alia the responsibility to coordinate the implementation of the National Drug Control Master Plan 2019-2023, took over this responsibility as from March 2020. The report of the Commission of Inquiry was scrutinized by the National Drug Secretariat, and a list of 390 recommendations comprising 328 for Mauritius and 62 for Rodrigues was drawn up and categorized under the responsibility of relevant ministries and departments for implementation. Regular monitoring of the recommendations is conducted, and the status of the 390 recommendations as at January 2023 is as follows. 295 have already been implemented or have adequate measures in place. Actions have been initiated on 51 recommendations. 6 may require legislative amendments and are under consideration at the level of different ministries and departments, and 35 are considered not feasible by the different ministries and departments concerned, and 3 recommendations relate to the judiciary. The remaining 15% of the 390 recommendations which have not yet been completed are expected to be implemented by December 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, on 31st August 2018, the Ministerial Committee set up a task force with the following terms of reference: to conduct further inquiries that the Commission has earnestly called for in a number of identified cases, to refer those cases where names have been mentioned to the relevant authorities, to look into cases where the Commission has drawn attention to but has not been able to gather sufficient evidence to investigate into, and any other matter not mentioned in the report, but which might be related to what I have just mentioned. The task force is constituted of the Director General of the Independent Commission Against Corruption as chair, the Commissioner of Police, the Director General of the Mauritius Revenue Authority, the Director of the Financial Intelligence Unit, the Director of the Integrity Reporting Services Agency, and the Deputy Solicitor General. At its first meeting on 11th of September 2018, the task force decided to co-opt the Commissioner of Prisons as one of its members. The task force has, since 11 September 2018, met on numerous occasions to develop the necessary strategy and plan of action in order to fulfill its mandate. I wish to inform the House that a draft legislation for the setting up of the Financial Crime Commission is being finalized for a proper institutional framework to combat financial crime. This will also be in line with government's philosophy to avoid setting up multiple agencies dealing with related or similar issues. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am further informed that as at date, out of the 64 initial cases entrusted to the police, Enquiries are proceeding in respect of 15 cases. No further action has been taken in 15 cases upon advice of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. 2 cases have been sent to the Office of the DPP for advice. 22 have been referred to the Anti-Drug and Smuggling Unit for monitoring, and inquiry has been completed in 10 cases. With regard to the 122 cases referred to the Mauritius Revenue Authority, I am informed that the outcome of these cases is as follows. 75 cases were investigated, out of which 43 investigations were completed with tax yields and 32 cases were completed without tax yield. 38 cases were discontinued for the following reasons. 2 persons have already passed away. 34 cases have been disposed of after preliminary inquiries which did not give conclusive evidence of tax evasion, and 2 cases were finalized before the setting up of the task force. The 9 remaining cases are subject to further investigation at the level of ICAC or the Mauritius Revenue Authority. Referrals from Anti-Drug and Smuggling Unit and the Mauritius Revenue Authority allowed the Integrity Reporting Services Agency to obtain an unexplained wealth order to confiscate cash in the sum of 16.5 million rupees suspected to be proceeds of drug trafficking. An application for an unexplained wealth order in the sum of 52 million rupees is currently before the court following another ADSU referral, and a further referred case in the sum of 16 million rupees is under investigation. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed that the Independent Commission Against Corruption initiated investigation in 53 cases. Out of 48 cases completed, 40 were set aside by the ICAC at preliminary investigation stage. However, 5 have been referred to the police and 2 to the Mauritius Revenue Authority. Out of the remaining 8 completed cases, 3 were advised no further action by the DPP and 1 was advised prosecution. 4 cases are awaiting advice at the level of the DPP. The Financial Intelligence Unit made major progress by completing its investigative analysis on all the 71 subjects referred to in the report of the Commission of Inquiry on Drug Trafficking. Mr. Speaker, sir, in line with the recommendations of the report of the Commission of Inquiry on Drug Trafficking in Mauritius, the Declaration of Assets, Mauritius Prison Service, regulations were promulgated with effect from 4th April 2022 for every officer of the departmental grade in the prisons department to make a declaration of his assets and liabilities, as well as those of his family and close relatives. With regard to seizures of drugs, I am informed by the Commissioner of Police that between January 2015 and 28 February 2023, a total amount of 14.8 billion rupees worth of drugs have been seized, as compared to drugs of a street value of 2.7 billion rupees seized during the years 2000 to 2014. Mr. Speaker, sir, the record seizures and arrests made since 2015 overwhelmingly testify to our determination to root out the drug scourge, which has been wreaking havoc in our society, particularly among our youth. I know for sure.
Answer. You can table it in the assembly. Because we have so many questions to ask, but we don't have enough time.
in your question, Honorable Nagalingam, you made mention to the Prime Minister to state the actions he proposes to take and thereof whatever. So what can I do? What can the chair do? If he has 50 actions he has taken. I'm talking to one honorable member. It would be impolite and lack of decorum for other members to intervene. Please.
So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I was saying that the record seizures and arrests made since 2015 overwhelmingly testify to our determination to root out the drug scourge, which has been wreaking havoc in our society, particularly among our youth. I know for sure that the population appreciates the concrete results we have achieved and shown so far, and that from all walks of life, our citizens are supportive of the action of the government. Mr. Speaker, sir, concerning the mafia in the horse racing industry, highlighted in the Paris report, and also by a former president of the Mauritius Turf Club, after 9 years of labor reign, we have taken the bull by its horn since 2015 to firstly bring reforms as recommended by the Commission, and secondly pave the way for the industry to develop and move ahead sustainably. We have amended the law to bring all operators under the purview of the company's legislation to ensure transparency and accountability. We have set up a horse racing division at the Gambling Regulatory Authority to take over the regulatory and governance functions of horse racing. Professionals have been recruited to look precisely at the integrity aspect of horse racing. Many of those who were known to indulge in corrupt practices are now facing the reality of a drastically changed landscape. They now know that their dirty business will no longer be allowed to occur at the expense of racegoers. And I'm pleased that we are cleaning the urgent stables and putting order where required with resolve and determination, contrary to those days during the 2005-2014 period when the horse racing mafia that was connected to the drug mafia was being allowed to extend its illegal activities before the eyes of everybody. Mr. Speaker, sir, with determination, we have managed to win many battles against the mafias that grew and prospered during the years 2005 to 2014. However, they have built networks, and parts of those are still functional. That is what I referred to in my public statement. Let me restate most emphatically that we are consistent and steadfast in our resolve to dismantle the drug networks and any other mafia networks in our country. And we are unflinchingly maintaining our stand of ridding our country of drug hydras.
Mr. Speaker, sir, having listened to the reply of the Honourable Prime Minister, give rise to even more questions than provide answers. Considering that there are a dozen of institutions which are headed by women and men of professional integrity, and that the statement of the Honourable Prime Minister is casting suspicion on all institutions, will the Honourable Prime Minister provide clarification on which institution he was referring, and the state whether any mafiosi have been identified and what action, if any, have been taken?
I think the honourable member hasn't listened. He hasn't listened to my long reply. In fact, indeed, it was a long reply. But let me say again that maybe he's not aware there have been a number of cases, Mr. Speaker, sir, where people working in some institutions have been, in fact, found not only some of them have been arrested, brought before the court, cases ongoing, some of them have been arrested, cases have been dealt by the court, convicted also. Just to give an idea, in several departments and ministry, Mauritius Prison Service, there have been a number of officers who have been interdicted, dismissed, subject to disciplinary actions for drug dealing since 2015 to date. In the Mauritius Prison Service, 21. The State Trading Corporation, 1. Agro-Industry, 2. National Land Transport Authority, 1. Education, 8. Labor, I can go on like this. And this is only part of it. Now, these are the people whom I am saying, unfortunately, they are accomplices, or they are themselves in drug trafficking, in drug dealing. And this is what I'm referring to. Those people who, in fact, instead of abiding by their responsibility, and as good citizens also, abiding by the law of the country, in fact, they do the opposite. They not only go against the law, but as we know, this matter, this question of drug trafficking is of paramount importance for the government, and that is why j'ai continué à dénoncer les brebis galeuses dans toutes les institutions qui sont concernées.
Merci. Honorable Premier ministre, regarde-moi la photo. Monsieur R.S., suspecté d'avoir blanchi plusieurs dizaines de millions de roupies. Monsieur S.B., suspecté dans une affaire de trafic de drogue, en compagnie du Premier ministre Pravin Jagnat, par l'avocat Pravin Jagnat. Monsieur le Premier ministre, ma question est simple. Est-ce que les tentacules, l'infiltration de la mafia ont atteint jusqu'aux dirigeants de notre pays?
Les tentacules ont atteint les dirigeants du Mauritius Labour Party. Ça, oui. Ça. Regardez dans votre rang. Dans votre rang, vous avez des membres de votre parti, at least un membre que je connais, qui a été arrêté par la police pour possession et trafic de drogue. Et puis nous savons pas.
Don't bring this again. Order. Please.
Et tout le monde sait, Monsieur le Président, qui se sont en train de défendre les trafiquants. Hein? Alors, il vient de nous donner la leçon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Well, we on this side, we unanimously commend the Prime Minister for his battle against the drug. My question to the Honourable Prime Minister this afternoon is, he has lengthily mentioned about the report of Lam Shangling. So my question is, prior to 2015, was there any institution of any commission of inquiry on drug mafia? Was there any commission by any other government like Parti Travail's government? Did they bring forward any commission to combat the drug mafia? Thank you.
Well, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is so obvious. Why is it that from 2005 to 2014, there has been systematic request, even at that time, members of the MMM party in the opposition, they were always asking and requesting the Prime Minister to set up a commission of inquiry on drug trafficking. Mais le Premier ministre d'alors et le Parti travailliste a fait la sourde oreille. Pourquoi? Pourquoi? Why not set up a commission of inquiry? The only conclusion which I can come to is pour tolérer, pour soutirer et pour protéger ces mafias.
Monsieur le Président, le Parti travailliste n'est pas au pouvoir depuis 8 ans. Le Premier ministre qui a reconnu publiquement l'infiltration et l'influence de la mafia dans nos institutions, qui sont sous la charge d'un gouvernement MSM, est Premier ministre depuis 7 ans. Au-delà de votre réponse et de votre aveu, Monsieur le Premier ministre, une chose demeure, je voudrais savoir, Monsieur le Premier ministre, je voudrais savoir, Monsieur le Premier ministre, ce que la population retient de cette photo où vous, personnellement, Monsieur le Premier ministre, en compagnie de quelqu'un qui a été arrêté pour des milliards de roupies dans des bonbonnes de gaz. Qu'est-ce que vous avez à dire en ce qui concerne les infiltrations de la mafia? Ma question est précise. Est-ce que ce monsieur qui est à votre côté fait partie lui aussi de la mafia qui a infiltré nos institutions, dont le Prime Minister's Office? Ma question est directe.
Vous savez, l'honorable membre, je peux montrer, et la prochaine fois, je vais emmener d'autres photos. Je ne savais pas que vous allez montrer des photos. Je vais montrer la présence de votre leader avec certaines personnes de la mafia. D'ailleurs, ben, écoutez, vous montrez les photos. Regardez la photo ici. Hein? C'est qui ça? C'est Jasmine Toulouse, candidate du MMM au numéro 14. Avec qui? Avec qui? Peut-être vous allez reconnaître. Alors, ne venez pas montrer des photos comme si vous faites des accusations gratuites, gratuiteuses. Et allez répéter ça de haut, si vous avez le courage. Si vous avez le courage, allez répéter de haut.
Honorable Nakshedi.
Mr. Speaker, sir, can the Honorable Prime Minister inform the House if he is aware of public statements made by Council ST following a bail motion he lodged in court for his client AB, who is a suspected drug trafficker?
Yes, parce qu'on est en train de dire il y a des institutions et que je suis en train d'attaquer les institutions, mais l'avocat ST, Sanjay Tilakdari, hein, parce qu'il n'y a pas lieu de ne pas mentionner, c'est connu, c'est d'ailleurs, il a fait une intervention publique pour dire, alors, qu'est-ce qu'il, let me quote, concernant un jugement, un très mauvais jugement, un magistrat qui ne pas comprendre non dans bail, un magistrat qui ne pas comprendre non dans présomption d'innocence et right to be released on bail. Et ce genre de commentaires, j'entends rien. Personne ne fait de commentaires, personne ne dit qu'on est en train d'attaquer le judiciaire, on est attaqué la magistrate. Non, rien du tout. Ils sont tous tranquilles. Hein?
Order.
Et il n'y a pas que lui, Monsieur le Président. Il y a d'autres aussi qui ont fait des commentaires.
Time over. The table is advised at PQ that question B6, B21, B68, B9, B2, B3, B10 have been withdrawn. Question to ministers.
B22.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the portion of land which had been leased to Mr. SKC falls under the jurisdiction of the Saman District Council. I'm informed by the latter that as per the records, no building and land use permit has been issued to Mr. SKC regarding the construction on the said plot of state land. I'm informed by the Minister of Agro-Industry and Food Security that the land was leased to Mr. SKC for a period starting from the 30th of July 2021 and terminating on the 29th of July 2028. However, the lease was cancelled through a letter on the 7th of March 2023. The District Council of Saman has informed that it has sought legal advice on action which may be initiated in respect of the existing construction on site.
Can the Honourable Minister inform the House if any representative from the local authority concerned, that is Savan District Council, or from his ministry has effected any site visit on the said portion of land which is found outside settlement boundary to take stock of the constructions effected there?
I mean, this plot of land, Mr. Speaker, sir, is found very much in the forest. It's not well seen from the main road. Actually, no visit was made by the local authorities before because there was no they were not aware that any construction was being made there at that time. But afterwards, then they visited the place.
Can the Honorable Vice Prime Minister inform the House whether the local authority concerned, that is the Savannah District Council, is contemplating any legal action against the lessee for violation of building laws on the land?
That's what I've said, Mr. Speaker, sir. They have sought legal advice how to proceed with that particular case.
Can the Honorable Vice Prime Minister inform the House if his ministry, with the collaboration of the Ministry of Land and the Ministry of Agro, is planning to set up a reforestation program on the said portion of land?
I mean, the land belonged to, I've just mentioned, it belonged to Mr. Agro Industry. So, I mean, they are going to decide what they're going to do with this plot of land.
Next question.
B23.
Mr. Speaker, sir, worldwide, cancer is the second leading cause of death. About 1 in 6 deaths is due to cancer globally. According to the WHO, in 2020, around 10 million people were diagnosed with cancer, and it is expected that these figures will nearly double by the year 2040. Mauritius, over the past decades, has experienced a gradual rise in the incidence of cancer and follows the global trend. It has been observed that females are more affected than males with regard to cancer. In females, breast cancer is the most common cancer, followed by colorectal cancer, whereas the most common cancer in males is prostate, followed by colorectal. Mr. Speaker, sir, cancer surveillance is a key component of cancer control. The appropriate tool for surveillance is a register. A population-based national cancer registry has been maintained on a continuous basis since 1990. The registry provides an accurate picture of the occurrence of cancer in the Republic of Mauritius. Again, according to WHO, a cancer registry is a key component used to develop the strategy in the fight against cancer. Statistics obtained play a crucial role to gauge the consequences of cancer on general health, analyze the recent tendencies, and foresee the evolution. The registry also helps to formulate policy on cancer and follow up on the results. Mr. Speaker, sir, last year, my ministry has developed a national cancer control program for the period 2022-2025, which has been approved by government. This action plan focuses on the 5 most common cancers for male and female in the Mauritian population, namely breast, colorectal, prostate, cervix, and lung cancer. Some of the main recommendations are strengthening of cancer awareness campaigns through mass media communication, introduction of national cancer screening program, introduction of new nuclear medicine services such as PET scan and SPECT scan at the new cancer center, extension of palliative care services from hospital to community and domiciliary-based, integration of cancer care with cancer patients, and twinning of the National Cancer Center with a reputed international cancer center. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to detailed statistics pertaining to 2022, I'm informed by the Central Health Laboratory for the year 2022, approximately 559 cases of breast cancers and 91 cases of cervical cancers have been diagnosed for public hospitals only. Data are still being compiled for private clinics, and I wish to inform the House that once the National Cancer Registry Report 2022 will be finalized, same will be published on the Ministry's website.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Honourable Minister tell us about the strategy of his ministry for collateral cancer screening?
Mr. Speaker, sir, breast and cervical for the colorectal cancer screening. Yes, this strategy is that given the increasing trend in colorectal cancers in Mauritius and across the world, as well as the colorectal cancers burden, the Ministry of Health has organized an international conference on colorectal cancer screening last year from 12 to 13 September. Dr. Suleiman Moria, GOSK, teaching lead gastroenterologist, hepatologist at Bradford Teaching Hospitals, UK, a Mauritian national established in the UK, assembled eminent and renowned experts in the field of colorectal cancer to share their experience with the participants about treatment, carrying out necessary tests, screening of colorectal cancers in Mauritius, thereby preventing early deaths. The colorectal cancer screening program center will be housed at the Dr. AGG2 Hospital under the umbrella of the Center for Gastroenterology and Hepatology. Dr. Suleiman Moria was on official visit last week from 20th to 24th March to chart out the process for implementation of the colorectal cancer screening program, which I believe we will start it early next year.
We know from the Minister, when will the PET scan and the radiology machine for the therapy of cancer patients be fully operational at the cancer hospital?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the new cancer center, the building is already vested to the Ministry of Health. Now the procurement for these equipments is the equipment being done by the HSCC, and they are in process. By third quarter of this year, we will be having the equipment, and then we'll also need to conduct the training. So by end of this year, these equipments will be already installed and be in service.
Can the Honourable Minister provide details to the House pertaining to breast and cervical cancer screening in Mauritius? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir, breast and cervical screening program, they are being carried out whole year. And those who the test being carried out, they are for these married or sexually active women aged between 25 to 65 years old. The test being done at the community level, at the work sites, and this being done according to guidelines laid down by the expert for detection and treatment. So screening activities have been re-engineered because previously we were using different tools to do the screening. Now it's been done using liquid-based cytology instead of the conventional cytology. And for the year 2022, the number of screening conducted in regard to cervical screening being by the Health Promotion Unit 8,800, in the Mediclinics area health centers 3,183. So in total, the screening done last year for breast and cervical cancer being 11,983. So these are the tests being done.
Can the Honourable Minister give us some information about clinical research to be carried out on cancer in Mauritius?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. So the Ministry of Health is collaborating with the International Cancer Research, ICR group, to carry out research and development program in connection with the prevalence of cancer in Mauritius. And the ICR group, domiciled in United Arab Emirates, is the research and development arm of the King Saud University, mandated to run the quantum optics program. So this is the research collaborators, and hopefully in the coming weeks we're going to sign the MOU, and with the MOU we can start establishing the different criteria how to conduct research in Mauritius and Rodrigues as well concerning cancer.
The table has been advised that the following PQs have been withdrawn. B65, B96, B54, B59, B57, B58, B101, B76, B103, B78, B56. Next question.
B24.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to children entrusted to shelters, I am informed that presently no child is admitted at the Brown Seco Hospital. However, I am also apprised, Mr. Speaker, sir, that there are currently 5 minors falling under the care of my ministry who are admitted at the hospital mentioned. These minors suffer from severe psychiatric issues that require ongoing specialized care, which is only available at the said hospital.
Il semblerait que des enfants d'un certain shelter sont envoyés au BSH pour avoir manifesté un fort caractère ou leur mécontentement devant le repas qui leur est servi. Nous savons tous que qui dit BSH dit également problème psychiatrique. La ministre en a-t-elle été informée de ce cas? Et est-elle également au courant que les enfants admis dans les shelters ou au BSH sont tout de suite déscolarisés?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am not aware of the particular case raised by the honourable member of the opposition, but I can reassure the House that the 5 minors currently admitted, the 5 minors I mentioned who fall under the aegis, under the care of the Child Development Unit of my ministry, who are currently admitted in Brown Seco Hospital, do suffer from very serious psychiatric problem that requires specialized treatment, like I mentioned. As to the second part of the question, was it about somebody being admitted because they complain about their meals?
Des enfants.
Mr. Speaker, sir, honourable member mentioned something very pertinent, the decision whether there can be a continuity dans la scolarité de ces enfants rests upon the decision of the medical staff and the personnel providing treatment to these minors. And unfortunately, often is the case, they're not automatically déscolarisés, but often is the case that they cannot carry on with their education.
La ministre est-elle au courant qu'en 2013, un comité ministériel comprenant le ministère du Genre, le ministère de la Santé et celui de la Sécurité sociale avait été mis sur pied pour dégager un plan à l'intention des enfants nécessitant des soins psychiatriques? Est-ce que la ministre est en mesure de nous dire si le comité fonctionne toujours? Si oui, est-ce qu'il y a des recommandations qui ont été faites sur le sort des enfants admis sur long terme au BSH?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am not fully aware of the report or the committee being mentioned by the honourable member, the one that was set up in 2013. But I can reassure the honourable member and the House as well that since the enactment of the Children's Act of 2020, there has been the Child Services Coordinating Panel, which is set up and comprises of various stakeholders, the provisions to set up an infrastructure to provide specialized care for children requiring such care is being discussed with the relevant stakeholders. At the moment, I would like to point out that this hospital, the Brown Seco Hospital, is the only institution that can provide this kind of specialized care. We are looking at, government is committed to coming up with specialized institutions that can provide housing facilities and accommodation and care to these children with these needs.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président. Les effets secondaires des médicaments sont inévitables et désastreux sur les enfants. La ministre pourrait-elle indiquer à la Chambre qui prend la décision d'interner ces enfants au BHS? Est-ce qu'il y a un panel composé de différents spécialistes médicaux? Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the question put forward by the honourable member is not related to the parliamentary question that I am replying to, but the answer is very simple enough, and we don't say intern, we say admitted to a facility. The answer is very simple. It is a medical team that decides what medication to provide to any patient, be it yourself, myself, or a child, or anybody else who requires medical attention. It is a doctor who prescribes medication.
The table has been advised that PQ B83, B88, B82, B99 have been withdrawn. Also, PQ B54 will be replied by the Honorable Vice Prime Minister, Minister of Local Government and Disaster Risk Management. PQ B59 will be replied by the Honorable Minister of Land Transport and Light Rail, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Regional Integration and International Trade. Next question.
B25.
Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to inform the House that the United Nations Committee on the Rights of the Child, the UNCRC, examined the combined 6th and 7th periodic reports of Mauritius and commended the government of Mauritius on its presentation. The concluding observations, which were adopted on the 3rd of February this year, are available on the website of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights since 23rd of February 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, my ministry has already initiated a series of measures for implementing the recommendations contained in the report, and the Child Services Coordinating Panel, as established under the Children's Act, is holding consultations with relevant stakeholders to devise the implementation plan, which I am sure you will appreciate consists of immediate, short, medium, and long-term actions. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Child Services Coordinating Panel has been mandated for this particular task, and I wish to reassure the House and the honourable member putting the question that by the time we go to our next reporting cycle, which will be in 2030, significant progress will have been achieved.
La ministre a mentionné les immediate actions. Parmi les principaux sujets de préoccupation du Comité des droits des enfants des Nations Unies et pour lesquels, justement, il demande des actions urgentes, figurent les grossesses précoces, dues au manque d'éducation sexuelle et d'accès limité à la contraception, entre autres. La ministre peut-elle nous dire si et quand est-ce qu'elle compte implémenter une mesure qui a été recommandée et qui en soit très très simple à implémenter, qui est celle qui voudrait que les adolescents n'aient plus besoin d'être accompagnés par leurs parents pour bénéficier de moyens de contraception auprès de l'institution concernée. Cette mesure-là, je finis juste, cette mesure-là est très simple à implémenter et permettrait de réduire le nombre de grossesses précoces, d'avortements clandestins et de transmission de maladies sexuelles. Merci.
Mr. Speaker, sir, it is indeed a strong recommendation of the committee, and I can reassure the honourable member and the House that it is something that we are looking at implementing urgently.
Parmi d'autres recommandations urgentes, le comité a fait ressortir que cela fait 8 ans que ce gouvernement parle du même Adoption Bill. Est-ce que la ministre peut-elle enfin aujourd'hui annoncer quand est-ce que ce projet de loi sera enfin présenté à la Chambre?
Mr. Speaker, sir, indeed, it has been flagged by the committee that the enactment of the adoption bill is a priority. It is a priority of this government. And I have just reported there are so many recommendations contained in that report that is being monitored by the Child Services Coordinating Panel. Coming to the adoption bill, this is not an emerging need. It has the need for the adoption bill to come into play has been there way before 8 years. I can report to the House that the bill is currently being finalized with the Solicitor General's office, and my ministry, myself, my government will be bringing it to the House.
Les experts ont aussi fait ressortir qu'il n'existe pas de stratégie nationale concernant le bien-être des enfants. Est-ce qu'elle peut nous dire ce qu'il en est?
Mr. Speaker, sir, again, this is one of the recommendations to come up with a 10-year plan for the welfare of the children. Again, this is not another emerging need or a new recommendation of the UNCRC. It is something that has been flagged prior during the tenure of other governments as well. But we will do it, we are working on it, and we will come up with a plan.
The table had been advised that PQB 64, B92, B100 have been withdrawn. Honourable members, I'll suspend the sitting for 1.5 hours.